So, good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you to the March 19th, 2024 meeting of the staff presentation of the Calvert County budget. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to reconvene.
Make a motion to reconvene, sir.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to reconvene the meeting of the Calvert County Board of Commissioners. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. So the first item on the agenda. Yeah. Director Miller, would you like to get started on the presentation?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Tonight, we're here to present the fiscal year 2025 staff recommendation or staff recommended budget. And with that, I'll turn the meeting over to the County Administrator, Mr. Mark Willis.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mark Willis, County Administrator. I'd like to welcome all of our folks in the courtroom and any of those that might be joining us on TV. This is a presentation for the draft recommended fiscal year 25 budget. Please know that we take this responsibility very seriously as we draft a budget. This is really a starting point as we prepare this budget for the Commissioner's budget, which will happen later in May, and I'll say that a couple times. Citizen input is encouraged, it's anticipated, it's appreciated, and it helps to provide us direction as we go forward when the Commissioners think what they need to do to improve upon this budget. So for slide 2, so you're going to have folks that are going to be presenting up here. We've got Bruce Miller, who is the Director of Finance and Budget. We've got Dawn Wood, who is the Acting Deputy Director for Finance and Budget. We've got Beth Richmond, who is a temporary Deputy Director for Finance and Budget. And we have Dr. Andre Townsell in the audience that is also one of our speakers tonight. As with previous years, staff approached this budget very conservatively. Agencies were directed to present a flat budget. And I will tell you that budgets are never flat, because you do have escalators like contracts that are built into previous budgets. But where we could keep it flat, we kept it flat. Keeping that in mind, going forward into that budget effort, even though we had increases in that flatline budget, we reduced that budget for fiscal year 25 by $3 million. So it's $3 million as this draft recommended budget, less than last year. So with that, I will turn it over to Dawn, and she will start to lead us through the presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners, and welcome staff and citizens. I am Dawn Wood, Acting Deputy Director of Finance and Budget for Calvert County Government. Tonight is a public hearing required by the Calvert County Code of Public Local Laws. This hearing has been duly advertised, and a certification of publication is in our files that constitutes the record of this hearing. The county has adopted guidelines for conducting public hearings as detailed in Resolution 6-89. If you are speaking as an individual, there is a 2-minute time limit. If you are the designated representative of an organization, you will be allowed 5 minutes. If you would like to sign up to speak, there is a sign-up sheet outside of each courtroom. Speakers from the main BOCC courtroom will speak first, followed by overflow courtrooms number 1 and number 4, respectively. If you are watching and listening on the county website and wish to comment via telephone, there are instructions on the homepage. You will be called on after the in-person comments are finished. Next, Bruce will provide an overview of funds.
Good evening. I'm Bruce Miller, for the record, the Finance Director for the county. This slide provides a high-level overview of the county's major operating fund groups. These funds include the general fund, the enterprise funds, which include the water and sewer and solid waste, and then special revenue funds. Capital expenditures via the capital appropriation will be presented separately. As you can see, revenues for these funds aggregate up to $405 million. The expenditures, on the other hand, total $442 million. This leaves a funding requirement from fund balance of $37 million. So that at this time, I'd like to spend a little bit more time on fund balance. Fund balance represents prior year net revenue over expenditures. In this sense, it is similar to a family savings account or retained earnings for a for-profit corporation. Since fund balance is a one-time source of funds, it is generally used for one-time expenditures, therefore maintaining the relationship of using one-time sources for one-time uses. However, it's important to note that fund balance is also used as a rainy day funding source to bridge unforeseen increases in expenses or decreases in revenues, which is the very situation the county is currently facing. As noted, this is a bridging strategy. Therefore, it will be necessary to continue evaluating other possible and hopefully permanent revenue and expenditure solutions as this budget process evolves. Next, Beth will talk about general fund revenues.
Good evening. I'm Beth Richmond, Temporary Deputy Director for Finance and Budget. Here's an overview of the general fund revenues. This slide shows the different revenue sources that make up the $377 million in general fund revenue. On this slide, you can see that property taxes and income taxes are our two largest revenue sources and represent 317 out of the total 377 million. Together, they make up 84% of the county's revenue. This means that 8.4 out of every $10 of expenses that Dawn will speak about on the next slide are funded with these two sources.
Beth just reviewed the general fund revenues, and I will provide an overview of the general fund expenditures, which constitute administrative and operational tasks of Calvert County government. As you can see in the slide, the schedule and chart are visible representations of the different categories that reflect the primary core services essentially paid by the taxpayer, totaling $377.6 million. The largest, at 41%, is to the Calvert County Board of Education, followed by Public Safety at 8%, Sheriff's Office at 7%, Transfers, Pension, and Insurance at 9% each, then General Government at 8%. The remaining 18% consists of Parks and Recreation, Economic Development, Community Resources, Debt Service, and non-county agencies. For every dollar the county spends out of the general fund, 41 cents goes to the county schools. 31 cents is spent on operating expenses. 15 cents is spent on pensions, insurance, and debt service associated with capital improvements. Then the remaining 13 cents covers transfers to other county funds and other agencies such as Calvert Public Library, Calvert Marine Museum, and the non-debt portion of the Capital Improvement Plan, or CIP, to name a few. Next, Bruce will review the Board of Education funding.
Yes, I'd like to take a little bit of time to provide the viewer a crosswalk between the previous slide that Dawn just spent time with and the slide presented last week during the County Commissioners Workshop. At that time, staff presented a chart of BOE funding as a percentage of total general fund expenditures equal to 41%. So by providing debt service, OPEB, and CIP of $154 million operating, and then debt service of 4.8, OPEB of $1.5 million, and the CIP of $17 million, the total BOE budget is increased to $178 million, which brings it up to the 40% percentage. As we prepared the budget, there were budget drivers, as I refer to them, that are typically impact governmental budgets. The last few years, increased interest rates and raising inflation rates put a lot of pressure on the budget. These pressures directly impacted departmental expenditures via increased prices for contract services, fuel, utilities, and even the county's borrowing costs, to name a few. So these expenses are embedded in the current budget. However, it's hopeful, and we believe, that these pressures have moderated and stabilized. So we have to look at, also evaluate other areas, such as healthcare insurance, which on average can increase by 10% or more, OPEB and pension, which are annual required contributions that are prepared by an outside actuarial firm, and then the revenue sources from pilot agreements. So a little bit more on that. Although some expenses have stabilized, there are others that have increased, and they are the OPEB and the pension contributions that we just discussed. In addition, expense categories that create negative pressure, there are also revenue categories that are problematic at the time. For example, Dominion, the Cove Point LNG, and Constellation, the Calvert Cliffs Nuclear Power Plant, pay revenues to the county through a payment in lieu of tax agreements, also known as pilot agreements. These agreements expired on July 1st, 2023, and remain in negotiation. Therefore, specific revenue projections remain unknown at this time. So a little bit more specifics. This slide addresses specific increases. So you see in fiscal year '24, for pension, workers' comp, health insurance, OPEB, and general insurance, the total of these categories totaled $32.7 million. In fiscal year '25, the increase for these areas or categories, expenditure categories, increased by $3.1 million, bringing the total up for fiscal year 2025 to $35.8 million. Next slide. But I'd like to point out, as the county looked at the revenue and expenditure constraints, I think this slide clearly demonstrates the effort the county administration made to right-size the general fund operating budget. Note that the overall budget decreased by $3 million, from $380 million down to $377 million. This decrease was accomplished by reducing the fiscal year '24 budget by $6.3 million. Then recognizing the added expenditures for health insurance and pension increases reflected on the previous slide. And then increasing, again, salaries by approximately $400,000, which, by the way, are funded by independent revenue streams, therefore having no net impact on the budget's bottom line. Furthermore, the $6.3 million decrease was accomplished by eliminating all vehicle purchases, eliminating unused line number expenditures as a percentage of a 3-year average, and recognizing salary attrition caused by vacancies over the same 3-year period. Next, Dawn will discuss grants, their sources and uses.
In FY25, we expect to receive a total of $8.5 million in grants, $1.8 million for general government, $3 million for human services, $1.7 million for public safety, and $1.9 million for capital. These funds are used to support and enhance programs offered throughout the county. An example of a grant that falls under general government is the Adult Treatment Court, which entails intensive treatment and weekly case management meetings and monthly judicial reviews. Treatment courts have been statistically proven to be the most cost-effective way to combat substance abuse problems and therefore positively impact the criminal justice system. Under Human Services, examples are transportation grants, which support Calvert County's public transportation system. This grant funding provides funding for purchases for new buses, the maintenance of existing buses, operation of special bus routes to improve local access to local employment, and funds the operation and extension of existing bus routes and hours of service. Under public safety, examples are Homeland Security grants, which provide funds to enhance the ability of the county to prevent, deter, respond to, and recover from threats and incidents of terrorism in the framework of regional cooperation and planning. This grant program integrates the State Homeland Security Program and the Law Enforcement Terrorism Preventive Program. Now I will speak on special revenue funds. This slide displays an overview of special revenue funds which provide additional services above and beyond that are supported by tax revenue. These funds must receive most of their revenues from dedicated sources such as user fees rather than transfers from other governmental funds. The total expected in special revenue funds is $35.3 million, which consists of Parks and Recreation, the golf course, excise tax, funds within planning and zoning, economic development, human services, Calvert Public Library, and the Calvert Marine Museum. An example is the Land Preservation Fund, which collects its revenue in the form of recordation taxes, and critical area fees, which are collected to cover the county costs of replacing forest cover in appropriate areas. Both land preservation and critical area fall under planning and zoning. Parks and Recreation and the golf course funds are other examples of special revenue funds. Revenues are collected in the form of program fees, concessions, camping, general admission, and green and cart fees. These funds provide opportunities to residents and visitors at various locations throughout Calvert County. Next is Beth, who will discuss enterprise funds.
The next 4 slides cover the county's 2 enterprise funds. This means that the funds are expected to collect enough revenue to support their operations. The first fund we will discuss is the Water and Sewer Fund. $13.7 million is the total revenue estimated for this fund. As you can see on this slide, 74% of the revenue is from charges for services, such as capital connection fees. This is a one-time fee when a new user is added to the system, and user fees. This is charged for everyday use of the water and sewer systems. 25% of the revenues are from intra-fund transfers. These are transfers within the different departments of water and sewer. This $3.4 million of intra-fund transfers make up a large portion of the other expenses category you will see on the next slide. This slide shows the breakdown of water and sewers expenses totaling $13.7 million. While the slide shows multiple buckets for the different types of expenses, the purposes of those expenses is really threefold. 1, maintenance to keep the systems running smoothly. 2, repairs to the system if something goes wrong. And 3, improvements to the overall infrastructure. This slide shows the breakdown of the $15.6 million in expenses which are used to run the 6 resident convenience centers and the county landfill at Appeal. The largest expense, I was covering revenue, sorry about that. The second enterprise fund is the Solid Waste and Recycling Fund with an estimated revenue of $15.6 million. As you can see on the slide, 95% or $14.8 million of the estimated revenue is from charges for services. These such as annual fees, tipping fees, which are fees based on the weight of the landfill waste, and various recycling fees. The complete list of fees can be found on the county website. Okay, now we will talk about expenses. This slide shows the breakdown of water and sewers expenses, again totaling, I'm so sorry,
15.6.
$15.6 million. So as you can see on the slide, $9.6 million of contract services is to cover the removal of waste out of Calvert County. That's the largest expenditure for solid waste. The next highest is 4.3 million for salaries and benefits. This is for the staff that staffs the Appeal landfill and the 6 convenience centers. Next up, Bruce will cover the capital improvement plan.
Thank you, Beth. So this is the capital appropriation request from the different departments. This does not include the 5-year CIP plan, which is included in the budget document itself. This is just for the 25 appropriation. So you'll see that the total expenditures requested are $112 million, and the different revenue sources to fund these different projects, including pay-go, debt, pay-go from the enterprise funds, which includes fund balance, grants, excise tax, and user fees. To give you a little bit more depth of what these requests are for, the $17 million for education includes Northern Middle School replacement, and then about $5 million of school maintenance projects. These are broad categories. The public facilities of $13 million includes HVAC improvements, the county service building totaling approximately $9.7 million, and other improvements of about $500,000. Then the communications and media relations includes projects for 170, essentially from PEG, town center and planning and zoning. Again, these are flood and water quality projects. Technology services include infrastructure, public safety requests, recreation and natural resources, includes projects for Breezy Point, Cove Point, Harriet Brown Center, the Aquatic Center, and sundry other projects for about $6 million. Public safety are essentially the emergency communications, fire, new facilities for about $12.5 million, and fire apparatus of $2 million. And then finally, for public works and utilities, sewer totaling $18.9 million, water $200,000, and solid waste of $2.7 million. And again, the detailed projects are part of the budget itself, and the 5-year with that. So with that, this concludes the general fund presentation, or the governmental fund presentation, and we'll turn it over to the school department.
Question, we'll see if there's any questions.
Yes, sir.
So are there any steps and COLAs in this proposed budget?
This does not include steps or COLAs.
New positions?
There are, I think, about 6 new positions. Again, all funded from independent revenue sources, camera fees, that kind of stuff. So as the expenses go up, so do the payment of those through those revenue streams.
So there's no general funded new positions in this?
It's general fund, but there's no increase in the budget.
It's a special?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And OPEB. So last year, did we put anything into OPEB?
You put something in, we're carrying the same amount. We have not received the actuarial from the firm yet, so there is a potential that that will change.
Right, because I think in the last year or two, we put very little in OPEB
Yeah.
because of,
Correct.
but you didn't budget,
An
say
increase for it,
$700,000 for OPEB?
Well, it's a flat line. And I should say, because the different pensions and the OPEB are pretty well funded, they're pretty healthy. You know, there's discussion relative to the immediacy. If we were at 43% funded, I would say that we would have a different conversation, but again, I think we're in good shape.
And no new vehicles?
Nothing.
And CIP projects, we've sort of talked about those. What does that really save us if we push a CIP project?
Well, right
Just-
now, I think the strategy I would like to put on the table, and I have to talk more, and we have to get into the weeds a little bit, but use unused prior year funds, be it pay-go funds or bonds that have been procured, and then take those savings and put into those projects. There are other projects that we're not going to have sufficient funds, and we're going to have to look at, again, the funding sources. But I think, I think, understanding your question, I think there's opportunity, much like what we did for the general fund itself. Look at, the needs, the real needs. Look at the savings that we can pull from the capital projects and get it a long, long way to where our needs will be.
Because this shows pay-go of 13.6 million
Bruce.
for CIP projects.
And then allow that, or,
Commissioners, if I may, Mark Willis, County Administrator. So the capital improvement projects, the entire program is something that my staff has been looking at that in its entirety. It's a complicated mixture of various ways to fund that program. And what we would like to do is between this particular budget and next budget, have work session out here in front of you and give you some recommendations. I've got some projects that I would like to potentially move out. Some I'd like to spread out over the next 5-6 years, but I think I can give you a better answer if we come back in a future near-term work session.
Right, because I think we've talked about those, and there are situations where we have grants already lined up for some projects. I think the Northern Middle School, we already have the state locked in at a certain percentage, which we don't want to lose. So there are some projects that we are going to have to move, but I think what we would like to do is take a look at those projects that we can defer.
Yes, sir, and that's exactly what we're looking at. We realize that the Board of Education funding for grant purposes is really done in advance. So as we move forward, using Northern High School as the example, not only did they get grants, but because of their outstanding maintenance record, they were actually given a 5% increase in that grant funding, which means we have a 5% less amount of money that we need to provide to that. With the schools almost steadfast in the system, I'm not saying something can't move, but obviously Northern High School is going to stay put. All other projects will be brought before the Board of County Commissioners in a way that it makes sense financially, whether it's grants, pay-go, whether it's debt service, whether it's excise tax. We'll take a look at all of that, and we will try to spread it out so that we can financially afford to do these projects.
Mark, when you guys come back, can you also look into some of these projects that we're almost done paying for to see where in the future some relief may come? I know that you guys are constantly looking at that, but just to give us the number, I mean, some of this stuff, my goodness, feels like we've been paying on it forever, you know, some.
15 years.
Right,
Yeah.
and
That's the thing too, when these projects start, they're 15-year programs.
Sure, and for those in the audience, what Commissioner Hart is talking about is, we're on typically a 15-year cycle, so we're paying these bonds off over 15 to 20 years, depending on the project. And as we pay them off, that ceiling cap becomes available. So typically every year we'll give the commissioners kind of an update on what's been paid off and what's in the CIP to move forward so that we can continue to move projects forward. But even having said that, my purpose for coming back to the board in open session is to say, I believe, it'll be my recommendation to move certain projects around so that it provides the Board of County Commissioners a more fiscally responsible way to move those projects forward. So it's not that we don't want to do them, it's that we're going to do them smartly moving forward.
So I see in this budget, you have $22 million in debt service, which is what Commissioner Hart's talking about.
Right.
It's that bond repayment.
and that includes the new debt service from the bond that we issued last fall.
That's everything.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. No other questions?
I'm good.
I know where to find you.
Yes, sir. I'm sure we'll be talking.
I think we will. I think we're going to fix this. And just for public's information, today we voted in exec session to put a hiring freeze in place. So we're going to limit our hiring. So use that as a tool to evaluate our needs and assess staff that we have and make reductions where we can.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, County Commissioners, Administrator Mark Willis, stakeholders of Calvert County Public School, Dr. Andre Townsell, Superintendent of Calvert County Public School, and I'd like to share with you our Board of Education's proposed fiscal year '25 budget. Before I dive into that, I'd like to share some staff highlights. We are pleased to share that 38 of Calvert County teachers have been national board certifications. 88% of those teachers are highly qualified. 71% of those teachers have taught over 5 years of those, and 58% of them have taught 10 years or more. When I came on board in Calvert County Public School, I often talk about the triple A's, academics, athletics, and arts. I believe all of our young people fall in one of those categories. I'd like to share that Calvert County is a top 5 performing school district in the state of Maryland. We're #1 across all student groups for ELA 2 years in a row. 4th in the state for math, 3rd grade through 8th. 1st in the state for American government passing and proficient. Our graduation rate is higher than the state average and is nearly 95% for all students. We are U.S. News National Metro rankings for all of 4 of our high schools, and all of our high schools earn College Board's AP Honor Roll distinction. With regards to the 2023 Maryland State Department of Education report card, all 22 of our schools saw improvement in the average performance level in ELA, and 21 saw improvement in their percent proficient. Calvert County saw improvement in all summary groups in ELA and met annual targets in 8 out of 9 groups. 16 of our schools saw improvement in the average performance level and percent proficient in mathematics. We continue to have one of the highest graduation rates in the state and showed improvement and met annual targets for every summary group for the 4-year adjusted. 12 schools are ranked in the 80th percentile or above in state, with 5 schools ranked in the 90th percentile or above. 17 of our schools saw improvement in the state percentile rankings, with schools improving as much as 21%. Calvert County is 2nd in the state for percentage of schools earning a 4 or 5-star rating. Calvert County is one of 7 districts in the state that do not have any schools earning a 1 or 2-star rating. With regards to athletics, we have phenomenal student athletes in multiple sports across all of our high schools. This slide highlights how many sports and schools were regional champions last year, and this year is just as good. The celebration continues with our state champions for the 2022-23 school year, which include Huntingtown High School boys 110 and 300 hurdles, Northern High School boys 113 and girls 130 wrestling, boys and girls indoor track, girls indoor shot put, and girls outdoor shot put and discus. Patuxent High School, girls long jump. With regards to the arts and more, this is only a snapshot of many of the highlights and accomplishments earned by our talented students and dedicated staff. We are extremely proud of all of the hard work of our students and the tremendous support of our teachers and staff to not only set the bar, meet the bar, but exceed the bar and to raise the bar. Our fiscal '25 budget priorities, first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, is to ensure safety, a safe environment to support the academic, emotional, and behavioral needs of our students, provide for curriculum, maintain the efficient, responsive business operation, to recruit and retain highly qualified staff, and provide ongoing services to our employees, to honor negotiated agreements and vendor commitments, and to implement the require of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. If you know about the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, there are 5 pillars. Specifically for us, in Pillar 1, pre-K accreditation. Pillar 2, the development and implementation of the competitive career ladder with a minimum salary of $60,000 with incentives and payments for the national board certification. With regards to Pillar 3, high-quality instructional materials, payment for AP testing, dual enrollment costs, career tech certification, and development of a college and career readiness pathway. And with Pillar 4, the support for students with disability and ESOL, Family Engagement Coordinator. And very last, to implement the new Calvert County Public Schools strategic plan. This slide is very important. Why is this important? Is because we received this in January of 2024. And as you can see on the screen, Calvert County Public Schools is the only system in the state to realize a reduction in state aid. And the column and row highlighted shows the negative $22.5 million. And this circle that shows on the screen shows that there's an unallocated line of a little bit over $22 million. And my thought is that that's probably where our money is. And we're on a mission to try to get that back. Calvert County Public School received the largest percentage reduction in money per student in the state of Maryland. I also highlight the column and row, and you can see that we ranked 24th in the amount of money that we received per student at about $6,000 per pupil direct aid. In January, the original budget presentation indicated that we would receive state aid comparable to fiscal year 24 in a revenue chart. However, Calvert County Public Schools was notified the week before the budget presentation on January 25th that Calvert County was to receive $22.5 million less in state aid than fiscal year 24. And this was a major shock to our system. Immediately, as superintendent of Calvert County Public Schools, I sprung into conversation and collaboration with the Maryland State Department of Education, including meeting with our interim state superintendent, Dr. Carrie Wright, and the assistant state superintendent of finance, Ms. Donna Gunning. Additionally, I talked with the Public School Superintendent Association of Maryland Executive Director, Ms. Mary Pat Fannin. I met personally in Calvert County with the president of the State Board of Education, Mr. Clarence Crawford, and I went to Annapolis and met personally in the office of Senator Michael Jackson. I talked with our county commissioners, President Buddy Hance, Vice President Catherine Grasso, County Administrator Mark Willis, and members of his teams on several occasions in person. Calvert County Public Schools confirmed that our state aid would be reduced by $22.5 million down to overall state aid revenue of only $86,991,385. In January, Calvert County Public Schools identified $5 million worth of cuts so that our projected expenditure for fiscal year 25 was reduced to $10,450,000 over fiscal year 24. With the information of this unforeseen and unprecedented cut to our revenues, we returned to the drawing board to identify the best strategy possible to maintain the integrity of Calvert County Public Schools, a top 5 school district in the state of Maryland. Our executive leadership team came back to the table to address the shortfall and included everything on the table, including the $5 million previously cut, in an effort to save as many staff positions as possible while making additional cuts. Our approach was to first and foremost protect the classroom, minimize the impact to students, minimize impact to staff, scrutinize expenditure budget requests. Specifically yesterday, our Board of Education, every director sat down and went through 144 pages of our budget, going page by page, looking to see where we can cut. We approved only one new position, which is a requirement from the blueprint, which is the ESOL Family Engagement Coordinator. We have 13 other positions out of grants that would not move to the local budget, specifically the Rose Grant, the reduction of over-identification of special education students. There's 6 letters coaches. Maryland Leads Grant, There are 3 mentor teachers, 1 project-based learning specialist, 1 principal mentor, and 1 coordinator for Maryland Leads and Blueprint for Maryland's Future. And very last, in our approach, we've collaborated with our administrative staff on cost reduction ideas, literally saying, hey, pitch in and tell us where you think we can cut as a collaborative effort. With regards to our fund balance, as of June 30th, 2023, the total amount we've had in our fund balance was $28.8 million. Now, I want to share, using our entire fund balance is not a fiscally responsible option to resolve the revenue shortfall for our system. Our current fund balance is less than the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, recommended minimum of at least 2 months of operating costs, which equates to 16.7% of our total expenditure. As you can see from the graph on this slide, the majority of our fund balance are either assigned or committed funds, with approximately $7.3 million of our fund balance unassigned. I want to share the purpose of fund balance first and foremost is to maintain good fiscal health, to provide working capital and ensure that funds are available to pay employees and vendors with uneven revenue inflows and expenditure outflows, and also to reduce the risk and protect against the following financial disruptions. And I highlighted here a significant revenue reduction, significant unexpected expenditure, and other financial risks. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a significant revenue reduction with the $22.5 million in state aid. Understanding our total revenue shortfall, the cuts to our budget thus far, and additional cuts of $3,942,491, we have determined that we will use $20 million of our fund balance, and we are requesting an increase from our county commissioners of $10 million over fiscal year '24, which will close our revenue shortfall and minimize disruptions to our organization, students, staff, and families alike. All stakeholders of Calvert County Public Schools deserve the best education system possible. With this recommendation, I'm confident that we will maintain student achievement and academic excellence while also being a great place to have a career. As you can see, the proposed fiscal year '25 revenue, including the additional $10 million funding request from the county commissioners, total $253,468,409. A recap of our fiscal year '25 proposed expenditures is $2,703,468,409. This include additional cuts that have yet to be determined. And first, the overall increase of 2.5% is below the Consumer Price Index, CPI, and most of the increase is attributable to salary and benefits. Second, the significant increase of other instructional costs is a result of costs being moved into other instructional cost category because of the end of our Elementary and Secondary Emergency Relief Fund, also known as ESSER. And third, revenues from previous slide minus expenditures on this slide shows the $20 million revenue shortfall, which will be taken from our fund balance. Blueprint costs were continued to be embedded into the budget. The final 5.5% of salary increase for teachers cost $5,350,000. However, in Calvert County, we also provided the same 5.5% to other employees not identified in the blueprint. The expansion of our 4-year-old pre-K program included 1.5 teachers and 12 assistants, since we already had a number of half-day 4-year-old programs. These costs remain even, though we are not expanding any more programs this year. Calvert County Public School will continue to pay for Advanced Placement Assessments, AP, Career Technical Education Certification, and dual enrollment costs. Based on college and career readiness, Pillar 3 of the blueprint, designation or the finalization of our AP pathway, Calvert County will be limiting these costs in the future. Our dual enrollment costs continue to grow. Calvert County has 18 students in the College of Southern Maryland Calvert County Early College Program. However, 65 students have applied for early college for the fiscal year 25, which will increase the cost for dual enrollment. It is important to understand that we must determine if we limit the number of students who can access early college in the future. National board certification costs are shared between the county and the state for teachers defined in the blueprint. This cost will increase as our teachers complete their national board certifications and eventually receive their salary increases for maintenance of certification. The blueprint requires our school system to support students who are English learners and students with disabilities. English for speakers of other languages, ESOL, and special education programming costs include the salary and benefits of our staff in these programs. These can be found in either the instruction or special education budget pages. Currently, the state formula provides for the full amount of workforce development costs, which is $924,000. New blueprint costs in the fiscal year 25 budget are increases for pre-K accreditation and the estimated range compensation costs for ESOL family engagement coordinator positions. Calvert County Public Schools has included in the FY25 budget the additional trailing 2.75% increase previously agreed upon, and also included funding toward a step increase for all of our employees. The approximate cost of this step increase is $3,480,000. As you know, and you must know, that Calvert County Public Schools, Calvert Education Association, and Calvert Association for Education Support Staff are currently negotiating. The system approximates that a 1% COLA would cost $1.9 million. It is important that the Board of Education consider a minimum starting salary of $60,000. While the blueprint designates this as a July 1, 2026, St. Mary's County Public School just settled on a minimum starting salary of $60,500, as well as other counties who are moving forward with this minimum starting salary. We need to stay competitive to bring our teachers to Calvert County. To increase the salary of all certified teachers whose current salary is less than $60,000, and to hire new teachers at this rate, it could cost the system between $1.8 and $2 million, depending on the number of new teachers. And I want to share, although those counties have been able to start that new minimum salary, they are not facing a $22.5 million budget cut. So that's a challenge that we're presented with. And finally, Calvert County Public Schools is required to implement a career ladder that must be submitted for approval by July 1, 2024, and implemented by July 1, 2025. The career ladder must incent current teachers to opt into the career ladder. The approximate cost to implement the career ladder range from $2.4 to $2.4 million. The total cost will be finalized at the conclusion of negotiations. Ongoing costs for national board certification could increase in fiscal year 25 to a minimum of $708,200,000. It is important to share that any of these will require additional funding from county commissioners or the equivalent in budget reduction or a combination of the both. In summary, budget cuts included in fiscal year budget, our total revenue shortfall is $37.5 million. Our budget cuts included in the budget, $3,557,509. Our remaining shortfall, $33,942,491. Additional cuts planned, $3,942,491. Our remaining shortfall, $30 million. Fund balance to be used out of Calvert County Public Schools budget, $20 million. And an increased request from our county commissioners, $10 million, to put our remaining shortfall at zero. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
I have one, Dr. Townsend. I swear this is not a gotcha one because we talked earlier today, but one of our staff had ran a report on the revenue budget, and I just didn't understand this. Maybe you guys had some light. When I saw the slide again of the federal contribution of $785,000, that matched up with the report she ran, and then she just ran the Tri-County area, showed Charles at $970,000. But St. Mary's was almost $29 million federal contribution. Do we have any clue why?
You say federal contribution?
Uh-huh.
Said,
They probably don't know.
And I swear it's not a gotcha, it's something maybe because I know this is the beginnings of this to research, but I had never seen anything that different like that before, and I don't know if you have, I'd gladly give you what she ran.
Katie,
Yes, of
here,
course.
I have an extra.
Thank you.
Yeah, please.
Thank you so much.
It just jumped off the page.
Yep.
So, just something for the future when we meet again. So like I said, I just saw it tonight. So,
Scott Johnson, Chief Financial Officer. We'll be happy to look into that. St. Mary's County Public Schools figure may include the restricted fund revenue.
and like I say, just this was a culture shock on itself. So, just seeing that. So,
Thank you.
Questions?
I asked mine this morning.
So for those of you watch, we did have a work session today at our regular meeting, so we asked a lot of questions during that work session. And so we're gonna get some follow-up to those questions, I assume.
Yes,
We
sir.
asked about the budget cuts, what they would look like.
But I'm happy to share, when you're talking about $22.5 million, if you want to put that into people, that's 220 people. We don't want to cut 10 bodies out of 24 schools. I can't in good faith do that and deliver with the team we have, a highly effective school system that we have. We're looking at everything. Everything's on the table to be cut. We have deferred, for example, maintenance vehicles that we need in Calvert County. We have delayed or stopped the upgrade to all of our auditoriums. We have stopped the renovation of our planetarium. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's stopped. We have started today, we put a freeze on all of our spending. We sent that out to all of our principals and directors. So we're doing our due diligence to maintain the integrity of Calvert County Public School for fiscal year '25. The problem is FY26. I think we can tread water in '25, but what's happening in '26? So myself and my team, our Board of Education, we're going to start immediately developing fiscal year '26 budget once we have an approved budget, because we don't know what our state aid will look like next year. It's no fault of anybody, but Calvert County Public School, we're not receiving $22.5 million, and I don't have a straight answer to why. And that puts us in, our backs are against the wall, but we're not surrendering, we're not throwing our hands up, we're figuring it out now, but the real work is tomorrow. So I just wanted to share that tidbit.
And as the superintendent said, we've been meeting with everybody that will meet with us, trying to get this reinstated, and we just can't get this done in this quick a period of time, as he says. It's just been since January, and the only person that won't meet with us to talk about this is the governor. And it's his administration that took the money, but today, he refuses to meet with us to talk about this. So we're just trying to buy some time here and get through a year, and that'll give us some, a little more time to try to figure this out. Hopefully some things will fall into place between now and next year. But as you see, we're in the same situation that you are. We're all trying to figure this out together.
Yes, sir.
But we haven't given up. We talked earlier today in our meeting about St. Mary's County has announced that they've got their blueprint, as you say, going to start their salaries at $60,000, start July 1, and they got their ladder in place. And I talked to the president of the county commissioners tonight, and they did that for $7 million. So it's, we need to look at, what's going on over there, and if there are ways we can help and do that over here. So I think that what we will be doing is that, as you all have seen tonight, we're in the same situation you are. I think that what we're gonna do is have another conversation with the board, try to work together on budgets and processes and figure out ways that we can both save money. So that's gonna take another discussion with the Board of Education about how we move forward and do that together. So it's,
And just to reiterate what President Hans said, we did have a good work session today with you all, and I think we identified some more areas that we can look into more closely, and it's going to take both of us and everybody to work together to get this done. So thank you.
But your budget that you presented does include the COLAs and the steps and all those things that were in the contracts
Yeah,
for all the employees.
Yes, what we agreed upon last year. Well,
Oops,
I just want to be clear, what we agreed upon last year in the MOU, the trailing 2.75 and the 1.25 COLA. We're in negotiation with all of our bargaining agreements for the new contract that's coming, that expires.
So you haven't negotiated the new contract yet, so you
No,
don't
we've
know
not.
what that will be.
Correct.
I guess the question is, why hasn't that happened? Because we're trying to develop a budget, and that number would be very important, because you're gonna negotiate that contract now after we've adopted a budget. How are you gonna deal with that?
And that's a great question. I'll just go back to this slide where we shared that any of these will require additional funding from the county because of negotiation.
So you're not done asking us for money.
Correct.
Well, that puts us in a pretty bad position, to be honest.
Wow.
Because, I mean, you knew,
So we were told earlier today that the 4%, I believe it was 1.25 and 2.75, whatever the numbers were. I don't know.
2.75.
For teachers and.
Was in that budget.
That's from FY24, that's the trailing, that's what we have agreed upon with our MOU, that is in the budget. Our new contract is not in the budget because it's currently being negotiated.
So when do you propose the contract will be complete?
their negotiation as soon as possible, I'll share, but that's why I provide the range of what it would potentially cost.
So is there a meeting scheduled anytime soon?
Yes, sir, and our chief negotiator is here, and they're negotiating.
Because that could be another $5 or $6 million, depending on what you negotiate.
And that's why I shared that any of these requirement of additional funding from the county is equivalent in budget reduction or a combination of the both. So, I mean, we know we have tough decisions in front of us.
It's very unfortunate,
It is unfortunate.
because we don't have a printing press, so.
We don't. We sold it to balance the budget.
Couldn't afford the ink. Okay, I don't guess I have any more questions this time. So we'll wait to see the follow-up from today's questions, and anxious to hear how your negotiations finally end up.
Yes, sir.
So just to be clear, so this will go back to the BOE for a vote?
Oh, no, this has been voted upon, and it's the board's proposed budget.
So that is proposed budget. Okay, thank you.
But it's
Without
not
the-
complete.
Without the. not
It's an
complete.
incomplete budget, because you don't have your contract numbers in here.
That is true.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
The staff recommended budget is available on the county's website, and books are available for viewing at all Calvert County Library locations. After receiving feedback from tonight's public hearing, the BOCC will meet with county leadership and directors and work towards completing their recommended budget. The public hearing for the Commissioner's budget will be held on Tuesday, May 14th at 7 p.m. The floor will now be open for public comment, starting with speakers from the main BOCC courtroom, followed by overflow courtrooms number 1 and number 4 respectively, followed by virtual callers. For the record, the Department of Finance and Budget has received 2 public comments from Alicia Ostrozecki and Guthrie Smith that have been entered into the public record. As a recap of the public hearing protocols, if you are speaking as an individual, there is a 2-minute time limit. If you are the designated representative of an organization, you will be allowed 5 minutes. If you are watching and listening on the county website and wish to comment via telephone, there are instructions on the homepage. You will be called on after the in-person comments are finished. I would like to call up Sheriff Ricky Cox as our first speaker, representing the Sheriff's Office.
Good to see everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces in there. Thank you, Commissioners. Sheriff Cox here tonight representing the Calvert County Sheriff's Office and our detention center too as well. Just want to say thank you for the staff here It's a lot of work that goes into preparing these budgets, and you kind of see the behind the scenes, what goes into it. And we have a lot of tough decisions to make, and I want to thank my staff in the back too as well, preparing our own budget with the Calvert County Sheriff's Office and Detention Center. So thank you to you all. I mean, I really appreciate a lot of work going into it. As you can see, Mr. Bruce Miller told us our budget for the Sheriff's Office and Detention Center is right around 7% of the county's overall budget. And just like everybody else, I'm asked to reduce my budget. First year as elected, we went through our budget. We found a lot of savings in there. We cut a lot of stuff out of there. I made those decisions, and we did it, and we were able to operate. We're asked to cut these budgets by 9%, including me. All the thing I asked you, as like I asked you before, as I make the call on that, and not the staff of the financial budget staff for the Calvert County government. So I'm elected the sheriff, and I think I should make those calls where we make those cuts in our program. The cuts that they made at the jail too as well were concerning when we looked at it. Really no fat to trim there at the jail. Care and custody of inmates is very important. The programs there. I just attended the IOP graduation there. Was pretty good to see there. We're helping out inmates and they're putting them back into the public and making them good citizens. I think that's their overall goal and should be our goal down at the detention center, and me as the sheriff too as well. Steps and COLAs, I'm asking for all my staff, the sheriff's office and detention center, steps and COLAs. I would like to have that this year for them. We can work hard. They do a great job, and we worked hard to get there. We won't fall behind like we did before. So I would ask you for steps and COLAs for my staff and my people. My goal as the sheriff is to provide external law enforcement to the citizens of Calvert County, and that's my goal. And keeping our schools safe too as well. We've had meetings with Dr. Townsend, and I think that's very important for both of us too as well. But in closing, I just want to say thank you, and it's a pleasure to be your sheriff. And I know we have a lot of tough calls to make here moving forward in the budgets, but I'd just like to say thank you and to the staff, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sylvia Batong as an individual.
Okay. Commissioners, administrators, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Sylvia Batong. Since 1992, a Calvert citizen, faithful voter, and taxpayer, having raised 2 children here and been here since 1992. I'm here to support the school board request for funding from the BOCC to make up in part the huge loss in per pupil spending from the state. I did a little calculation on the back of an envelope. The property tax rate for $100 of assessed property value has been unchanged from 0.927% since at least 2022, and is actually lower than it was in 2018 when it was 0.952. The BOCC is expecting to get the BOCC is expecting to get $202 million in property tax revenue in FY25. This comes to about $5,771 per property. If the county collects an additional $10 million in FY25, this would result in a property assessment increase to $64.24, a change of $713 per household. This would necessitate a property tax rate increase to 0.947%, up from 0.927%. Despite COVID and all the chaos of the last 4 years, CCPS has a state ranking of number 5 for quality, even with teacher salaries ranked at number 18 in the state. Our high school ranking enhances our property values. If commissioners do not fill the school budget hole, then this ranking is in danger. Not making up for just this next year's loss of school funding will result in years at the other end of increased costs to restore quality staff, address deferred maintenance, etc. Taxes need to be increased at last. Tax rate 0.947% will be lower than what it was in 2018 when it was 0.952. Don't sacrifice our students and property values on the altar of the no new tax mantra. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Joan Thorpe.
Hello, my name is Joan Thorpe. I'm here to represent myself, and I'm here to talk about ready access to budget information. I'm going to start by reading part of the advertisement for this public hearing, and that ad is about the topic, location, time, and place of the hearing. The ad stated that the fiscal year 2025 staff recommended budget document would be made available for public viewing in advance of the hearing at the county website, and that hard copies would be made available at the public libraries or by contacting the Department of Finance and Budget, the phone number, and the contact. Commissioners and Mr. Willis, in addition to coming into their office by person to request a hard copy of the budget, I also emailed the Finance and Budget Department. I was not able to get a copy during my in-person visit, and my email was not replied to. I have to ask the commissioners, is this transparency? I would have thought that the board would have liked to encourage citizen involvement and participation in this budget process. You have to know that today many folks use their phones to access things on the internet, and a budget document is a very hard thing to read on a little tiny cell phone. So if you're really interested in hearing from the public, please make the budget readily accessible in hard copy to all citizens so that everyone can see it, not just print it from a PDF that you get or go to the library. I would really encourage the commissioners to act to ensure that this equal access is available to all, especially senior citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Dawn Lavelle.
Hi, my name is Dawn Lavelle, and I'm talking to you tonight because I found a fundamental flaw in your budget document as presented. There are no actual numbers in it. The basics of a financial plan is to have actuals in order to prepare a budget for future expenditures and revenues. And there are no actual numbers in this budget. I don't understand how you can prepare a budget without actuals, how you can cut numbers when you don't have actuals. Are these cuts realistic? Are they attainable? How do you know that if you don't have the actual numbers to look at to say, yes, we can cut here and we can cut here? It doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what you were doing, how you can come up with these numbers. Are you not able to get the actuals? You spent $4 million for an ERP system that you should be able to have these numbers. Is that why you can't get them out? Is this a new budgeting technique that is not widely known to any other people? And I want to know, you're using the $28 million from fund balance. How is that going to affect your bond rating? How is that going to affect it? Are our rates going to go up because we're going to lose our AAA rating for poor budget planning? That doesn't make sense to me. This deficit was predicted in the FY24 budget, and it doesn't seem like anybody did any planning for it. And on top of that, the revenue decrease from the pilot programs that were ending has been known for years. That information has been made available for years, that these pilot programs, this revenue is ending, and apparently no one made a plan to account for this, to prepare for this. And so here we are in the situation that we're in with a $28 million deficit this year, as well as a deficit for last year. I don't see how this is transparency in government. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Linda Hampshire. Next speaker is Bernadette, and I'm sorry if I mess up your last name, Supanik.
Good evening, Commissioners and Calvert County community. My name is Bernadette Supanik, and this is my 9th year teaching. I come from educators who came here in the 70s to teach in our schools. My parents taught for a combined total of 78 years. Education was essential in our family, and we knew growing up that nothing would be possible without hard work and our teachers. I'm here before you today to stand up for my profession, especially in the community I grew up in. I understand the state significantly underfunded education, but the answer is not to underfund education in our community. The answer is not to do more with less. I looked at Dr. Townsell's proposal and the budget the Board of Ed members passed, and I stand before you to tell you, as an employee of the county, I won't be able to pay my mortgage and my bills. I had to make the hard decision to apply to other surrounding counties, and this morning I asked my supervisor for a reference. I don't take this decision lightly. I love my community, I love my public school, and I love teaching. But if I stay here under the proposed cuts, I won't be able to afford my bills or my mortgage, and I know I'm not the only one. If you continue to move forward and not properly fund education, our educational professionals will be leaving. Retention levels will not exist, and attracting the best of the best will not be possible. I am begging you, fund our schools for our kids, for your grandkids, for your neighbors' kids. Fund our public schools so we can continue to teach in the community we love, so we can continue to give back to our community, and so our schools can continue to be the best for our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sarah Stith.
Hi, I'm Sarah Stith. I've been teaching in Calvert County Public Schools in the special ed department for 18 years. I am a proud Calvert County Public Schools graduate as well. I just wanted to touch on the concerns with the budget deficits. This will directly affect the quality of education we are able to provide our students. It is essential to understand that subpar funding results in subpar school systems, and ultimately our students will suffer. There's critical aspects of the funding shortfall that will impact teacher pay and career ladder programs. Adequate funding is essential not only for the recruitment, but also the retention of talented educators. Without competitive salaries, we're going to risk losing our valuable young teachers, as well as not having attractive compensation packages for new teachers. It is crucial that we advocate for increased funding to ensure that we continue to provide quality education and retain our exceptional staff. By working together and demonstrating the importance of supporting education to our community and policymakers, we can make a difference in the future of our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Barbara Mowry.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Mallory. I'm secretary at Dowell Elementary School in Lesby. And I just have some concerns about the proposed budget for CCPS. I listened to the board talk about rising inflation, rising transportation costs, rising interest rates, rising health insurance costs that all have impacted the budget. But those same forces are impacting each of us as individuals as well. And when you make a proposal with, a 1% COLA or no step increase, we are already stretched extremely thin. And you're asking us to continue to do more with less, and it makes it very difficult to provide quality services for our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amy Hamilton.
County Commissioners, I'll get closer. I understand the difficult position you are in to fund the school district's budget. It's unfortunate that the prior commissioners were not adequately advised that the county's property taxes would increase in such a dramatic fashion that in turn affected the state's education funding. I also understand that the commissioners, when they discovered the problem 18 months ago and have been working with an outside firm to try and solve the problem. As a citizen and a teacher, I appreciate that. However, I must also ask myself, what as a county are we doing to fix the problem? The county as a whole needs to figure out how to trim all of the county budgets to account for the shortfall. You've asked that the school district, the school district's budget has a shortfall of $33 billion, or about 12.7%. Have you asked all of the departments to reduce their total expenditures by the same amount, 12.7%? If not, how is the county's problem only a burden for the schools, since the whole county benefited from that pilot program, which has decreased our funding? I also don't understand how CCPS can present a budget that does not include salary, COLAs, step increases, and a blueprint career ladder. None of those items have been discussed in negotiations with the BOE and the local unions. None of it. And we've been negotiating since October. We are aware that all of our surrounding counties have given their educational staff steps and COLAs. St. Mary's even compressed the salary scale so that at 20 years you're making top dollar. As a teacher who just reached that 20-year milestone, I would make about $30,000 more if I transferred to St. Mary's. Let's not say you shouldn't want a pay increase because it's for the children. I have kids of my own, and $30,000 is a year of college tuition, which I'm going to have to take out student loans to support for my student. We know that we're 18th out of 24 school districts in staff salaries. If we continue to not discuss salary as citizens of Calvert, we need to know that our teaching staff will leave. We won't be able to attract the new teachers to fill those voids because you can travel 20 minutes to another county that values them more. I can guarantee that the proposed BOE budget will be increasing due to current negotiations. The commissioners have a county representative that attends the blueprint meetings and has been well made aware of the career ladder and the funding needed to support the blueprint proposals. Thank you. I love your timer. I use it in my classroom.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Donna Cox Ostenso, representing CEA.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Donna Ostenso. For those of you who do not know me, I am a lifelong resident of Calvert County, and for the last 35 years, I have taught every grade, K through 5, here in Calvert, and am currently the president of the Calvert Education Association. I knew from a very young age that all I wanted to be when I grew up was a teacher. To this day, I can tell you the name of every teacher I had in grades K through 12. Why? Because I knew my teachers cared. What makes Calvert County Public Schools special is the people. The teachers, the related service providers, the building service workers, the cafeteria workers, the instructional assistants, the specialists, and the list goes on and on. Having a stable and passionate team of educators improves the quality of education provided to our students, leading to better academic outcomes and a positive learning environment. Additionally, when we invest in our school system by supporting our teachers, we are investing in the future of our community as a whole. In recent years, we have been facing a significant educator shortage, making it even more vital to focus on strategies to attract and keep skilled professionals in our schools. By investing in recruiting efforts and implementing initiatives to retain educators, we not only benefit the students directly, but also contribute to the overall well-being of our community. As we all know, funding plays a crucial role in providing quality education to our students. By ensuring adequate resources and financial support, we can enhance the learning experience and create a positive impact within our community. Education is not just about imparting knowledge, it is about nurturing young minds, building critical thinking skills, and shaping future leaders. I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge your support over the past several years and your commitment to our public school system. But I must address the elephant in the room, the $22 million shortfall from state funding for public education. Why? Many citizens of Calvert County do not even know what I'm talking about or understand why it is occurring. I think I have a pretty good handle on the why, but what's hard for me to accept is why this shortfall is the responsibility only of the school system to figure out. And let's be clear, I have no problem calling out Calvert County Public Schools for part of the mess that we're in right now with this current budget cycle. But CCPS did not make the deal with Dominion Cove Point. CCPS did not control the way millions and millions of dollars have been spent over the past 5 years. CCPS was not responsible for monitoring when the pilot program was going to expire or what the ramifications would be to the wealth formula that is used at the state level to fund our public school system. So to be clear to everyone at home listening and watching, this shortfall is not due to a mismanagement of funds or because CCPS did something wrong. I am also well aware that the 5 of you were not in office when Calvert County entered the pilot agreement in November 2013. But someone in Calvert County government had to be responsible for managing agreements like the Dominion pilot, preparing for the day that the tax revenue source would be considerably less or expire altogether. Why in June 2022 was there not a contract being renegotiated between Berkshire Hathaway Energy and Calvert County government? Together, as elected officials, community members, business owners, we need to work together to provide a budget that is going to fund the needs of Calvert County Public Schools. And that means the ability to recruit and retain educators. Dr. Townsell presented a budget that used $20 million of their fund balance to make up most of the shortfall from the state. Unfortunately, the budget that he presented will not recruit and retain educators in Calvert County. CEA and CASE have been in negotiations with Dr. Townsell's team since November, but they have refused to discuss any salary items with either bargaining unit up to this point. Why? The timeline for submitting a budget to the county has not changed. The career ladder must be approved and submitted to the AIB by June 30th and be part of this FY25 budget. We need to give young people positive reasons to become an education professional. This starts with increasing our starting salary. This year, Calvert County was ranked 18th in the state for starting teacher salary. Yes, you heard me correctly, 18th. By FY26, the blueprint requires the minimum starting teacher salary to be $60,000. All of our neighboring counties will have met the minimum for starting teacher salary in September, except for us. So will we be able to compete with our neighboring counties to recruit new teachers to Calvert? I understand that this puts you at a disadvantage when going through your own budget process with so many unknowns. But I need you to understand that the budget presented to you this evening is insufficient. It does not cover the needs of the school system. As Benjamin Franklin said, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Jenna Lyons.
Hello. Hi, my name is Jenna Lyons, and I am an instructional assistant at ChessPACS, the environmental program for Calvert County Public Schools. Every day, I'm expected to meet the bar, raise the bar, and exceed the bar. I go to work wanting to do the very best job, knowing that I give 100% to Calvert County's youth. Yet, no matter how much I give, I leave every meeting feeling extremely defeated. The fact is, I couldn't afford to live on my own in this county even if I tried. I make approximately $650 every 2 weeks. That's approximately $325 a week, and about $65 a day. After all the confusion and discussion and budget proposing and budget blaming, I can't help but feel left behind in all the hyperbole. My position isn't even in the blueprint. And now, with the $37 million shortfall and any hope of being able to pay my quarterly water bill and sewer bill, it is now just an unrealistic fantasy for me. Since 2020, my monthly bills have doubled, and yet my paycheck can't even keep up. In fact, the best that I'm going to get is my yearly step increase, which will be a grand total of 8 whole cents. If I'm lucky, maybe I can get another $1 after about 12 years of work. My husband and I chose to move to Calvert County, neither one of us being from this area. I grew up in Maine because of the schools. All we knew from our research was the schools got amazing grades. Like, you look on great schools, 10, 8, 9. And we were just really impressed. And when we started traveling in the area and looking at the surrounding county, I was just so impressed by the countryside, and the people were so nice, and I really found my place. So we wanted our girls to have the best education.
Please wrap up your comments.
Thank you. That's why I find this situation so heartbreaking, and why I will continue to fight for fair wages. Thank you.
Next speaker, and I believe his last name is Shaster, Mike. Okay. Chisler. I'm sorry.
Good evening. You proved once again that I have horrible handwriting. Good evening, Commissioner Hance and Grasso and the commissioners and Mr. Willis. I'm Mike Schisler. I live in St. Leonard, and I had 43 years in the Calvert County Public School System. The bulk of it, I was principal at Beach Elementary for 29 years. I want to share a quick part of a paragraph written by Wendell Berry. Wendell Berry is a Kentucky farmer. Mr. Hance, I think you might be familiar with him. This is something he wrote in one of his essays. He was having a conversation with an old farmer from Nebraska. And this old farmer was no longer able to use his land or farm his land. So he rented it to a younger farmer on the basis of what he called crop share, which is instead of a price paid or owed in advance. And the old farmer said of his renter, if he has a good year, I have a good year. If he has a bad year, I have a bad one. And Barry went on to say, this is what I would call a community economy. It is a sharing of fate. It assures an economic continuity and a common interest between the two partners. Calvert County Public Schools and the Board of Commissioners, you are the partners. And we are expecting you to work together. It's a bad year. We need you to work with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Marita Perrin Mason.
Thank you, board members. Thank you, community. My name is Marita Perrin Mason. I'm a fourth-generation educator in Calvert County Public Schools. I was hoping to be the first to finish my tenure in retirement in maybe 2 years or more. I still love what I do. I'm a world changer. First generation, she left Calvert County Public Schools in a one-room schoolhouse, and she moved to be a housekeeper in New York so she can have more opportunities. Second generation, my grandmother, who I love, she was the first to integrate, one of the pilots to integrate, moved to Anne Arundel County for better opportunities. Third generation, stayed here for a while, moved to Connecticut. I was really proud, hoping to be the first, and I'm really contemplating, after 31 years, what my next move is going to be, looking at the proposed budget. 31 years ago, when we were #1 in pay, we had oodles of resources. It was like looking at me, you know, I like to eat. It was like a 5-star buffet of what we had to offer. Some of the examples are, we had $300 a year for supplies, a reading specialist servicing kids in grades 1, small class sizes in K1, assistants in K1, computer labs operated by a full-time staff member, auditorium trips 2 times a year, common hands-on science curriculum, desktops in each classroom, teachers involved in professional development across the country where we team with supervisors to serve as educational leaders, common curriculum and common resources across every school in this county. The delectables offered then, 31 years ago, made us #1. We had top salaries, and our educators were passionate, and we were highly qualified. With the current budget proposals, we're truly showing our country roots, neck bones. If you tweeze through the meat for neck bones, it's not enough to sustain us. We deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Catherine Crete. Cretu, I'm sorry.
Bruce. Call it 2 at a time. Yeah, so call next and shoot.
All right, after Catherine Cretu is Daryl Roberts and Cindy Yo.
My name is Catherine Cretu. I've lived in Owings for 38 years. I would like to acknowledge the elected members of the Board of Education for finally moving beyond their stalemate to hold their emergency budget meeting yesterday and for coming to an agreement that enabled them to submit a proposed budget today. It was a relief to see board members publicly voicing their concerns and directing questions to staff. It gave me confidence in the BOE accounting staff that they were able to answer questions so clearly and authoritatively. While some of the discussions were difficult, it was a beautiful example of how differences can be openly discussed with respect and civility. I hope that the board can continue to work in this manner going forward. As a grandmother with 4 grandchildren in county schools ranging from kindergarten through high school, I would like to express my extreme disappointment in the recent politicization of our public schools. To me, a quintessential example of this was the tug of war over who would pay for a forced and wasteful audit of our schools, the BOE, the BOCC, or both. I am dismayed to have to point out that we, the taxpayers, would be paying for the audit, no matter whose budget it came out of. I believe that county residents recognize the importance of the quality of our schools. We need for our elected officials to figure out how to pay for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Darrell Roberts.
Good evening. My name is Darrell Lee Roberts, and I've lived here in the county for many years. The school systems and the beauty of this county and its people is the very reason why we moved here. Tonight, I'm here in support of the Calvert Association of Educational Support Staff and their 515 members, and also for the Calvert Education Association and their 1,050 members. These are over 1,500 members with no contract. I read the budget for the first time today, and I apologize I'm not better prepared for this meeting or this speech here. But the one item that stands out to me above all else is that we have a proposed budget, or an approved budget from the BOE, with contract talks unfinished. These men and women are the very backbone of the Calvert County public school system, with no current contract. This budget means that the men and women that will be bargaining against this will be bargaining against themselves in the future if this budget moves forward. A budget with stark proposals to extend work hours, less prep time, less pay, and increases of cost of health care. Why would our people stay? How are we going to attract the best and the brightest? We do that with a fair contract. I don't know where we're going to find the money. I truly don't. But we either pay it now or we're going to pay a lot more later. I want to thank you all for everything you've done for my kids and my families here in Calvert County, for the educators that do so. I had the honor of watching 2 of my girls graduate. And in 2023, I saw a speech given. And that speech was about building on bedrock or sand. How about we build CCPS on the bedrock and get these contracts done for our greatest resource and assets, the men and women that work at our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last in-person speaker is Cindy Yo.
Daryl's a lot taller than I am. Good evening. One of the good things about going later is that pretty much what I wanted to say everyone has already said, so I'm just going to skim over it again. First, I watched the BOE yesterday, worked very hard in a bipartisan manner to approve the current budget. But there's still an additional $10 million that's needed. I was quite impressed by the administrative staff at the school board, who demonstrated how creatively they were always thinking forward and how they found ways to save money and still provide for quality education for our students. Unfortunately, all of this comes down to money. So I believe it might be time to say the T word, taxes. I believe we need to raise property taxes. I used my property as an example. We had one rate of 0.8920 from 2003 to 2015. That was increased in 2016 and 17 to 0.9520. Then, that was fine. People paid their taxes. Then you started to reduce it. When we have money issues, why do you reduce taxes? Okay, it wasn't a significant amount, but it has been reduced for 2018-19, 20, 21 through 23. When I calculated my property taxes from the time it was highest to what it is right now, the increase for my family was $109. So I am wondering, if we can raise taxes, and I don't know if this is legal or not, can you raise taxes and earmark that specific raise in taxes for a particular purpose? So can you say we're going to increase 0.05% and all of that money goes to education? Then that way we'll have a set aside to maybe fix some of these things and move forward. But we need to fund our schools because as I believe Sylvia said, our property taxes, our property values go up. We attract more people when we have a good school system. Thank you.
We will now open the phone lines for comments.
For those who have joined virtually, I see there are 10 who have joined by telephone. You can use the *6 to raise your hand. We will call you in the order in which your hand was raised. First individual is Joseph Cormier, who is speaking on behalf of an organization.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Joseph Cormier, and I'll be speaking tonight on behalf of the Calvert Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee. I want to start with a rumor I saw today. Maybe you can put it to rest. The reduction in state aid is not connected to the fund balance of 10% or 2 months of operating costs, right? If we knew about this in January, where is MACO advocating for us, and why didn't our delegation file a bill before crossover day to help us? They had plenty of time for panhandling and ethics. If the evaluation from SDAT is out of sorts, why haven't the county commissioners directed the attorney's office to file a lawsuit to get it fixed? Where's the Tri-County Council? Why haven't Calvert, Charles, and St. Mary's worked together on contract services and supplies? When I was deployed to Iraq, Donald Rumsfeld famously said, "You go to war with the army you have, not the army you might want or wish to have at a later time." So we have to play the hand we're dealt, good, bad, or ugly. We're not going to cut ourselves out of this problem. Our bond rater Fitch warned us that our county's wealth was tied directly to the LNG nuclear power plant. And they told us in December that the property tax rate had been lowered 3 times since 2018, and before that, you didn't raise it for 30 years. So how does this come out of left field? CCPS is the largest employer in Calvert County, and they take up the largest portion of the county's budget because they are the largest portion of the county's services. It's already all hands on deck in the schools, where roles are filled with long-term substitutes and support staff pulled from their role under the supervision of increasingly overburdened certified staff. We need more boots on the ground and hands-on in the classroom. For a generational long-term solution, we need a robust pipeline, high school to college certification and return to the county. We need a partnership with CSF young adults to core classes that can transfer to Talbot and Harvard and return to us. We need more instructional assistants that are not pulled from their role to cover classroom duties. We need more special education teachers, certified speech pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, and maybe more than anything else, behavioral health staff. We need our support staff to be compensated fairly and competitively so they can work one job and come to work well-rested and refreshed. At the end of the day, the school system is just one facet of the county services that support our students and community. We rely on the sheriff's office to be trained to meet our staff in the community, the library, parks and rec, Calvert Transportation bus services to get us there. We rely on the health department for screenings and vaccines and vital services. We often ask, what happens when the bus stop stops coming? Our kids strive to reach that goal of a diploma, and it might take 21 years, but once in the community, they no longer have that comprehensive system of support they had in school. So we rely on resources like Pathfinders for Autism, The Connection, the ARC of Southern Maryland, TCLE, the Autism Project, and more. Most of all, we rely upon you, the county government, to support our community with the most needs, not just to survive, but to be included and thrive. So commissioners, we're relying on you to support the infants and toddlers, children and young adults, teacher support staff, nurses and deputies, and the building service staff and bus operators. Thank you so much. God bless, Union Strong.
Chelsea Gallahue. And again, anybody that's just joined by phone, if you press *6, you can raise your hand.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Chelsea Gallahue. I am an 8th grade science teacher. I'm nationally board certified at Mill Creek Middle School in Lusby. I am a Calvert County graduate, and my son is in kindergarten at Mutual Elementary. I am a Calvert County taxpayer. As Dr. Townsell said, we can cover this year, we'll, tread water, but 26 is the problem. I am going to echo what Mr. Cormier said. Taxes, we have to do something. I saw that over half of the income of the county is related to property taxes. If we can't figure out how to not tread water, our property taxes and property values are going to decrease. This is not just a school system problem, which it seems like this cut Calvert County Public Schools is not at fault for, but is taking the brunt of. This is a county problem because cutting school funding or not funding the schools will result in decreased property values, decreased revenues for the county, which will ultimately result in even more decreased funding for everything. I know that I want to reiterate, I guess, that the budget is incomplete. It has no steps, it has no COLAs, it has no career ladder. St. Mary's County will hire teachers on the step that they're on with no loss of pay. And Ms. Hamilton mentioned earlier that they will accelerate you to the top of their pay scale if you're at year 20. The risk is real that the effects of this budget cut are cascading, and we don't all, it doesn't just have to be the Board of Ed taking the brunt of this. Something has to change to like stave off kind of doom in 26. And that's obviously hyperbole, but the real concern is that the money disappears. Anyway, thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Caller with last four digits, 9535.
Yes, thanks for taking my call. My name's Dean Hamilton. I'm from Calvert County the last 22 years. And I'd just like to make a couple comments. First and foremost, the budget that was made without the cost of living and the raises and everything, that's definitely incomplete. So it's going to cause a major holdup. And I'm not sure why we're at this point without that being done, but we are. As a property owner, I've had property taxes go up in the 22 years, and it's a pretty good amount. And I'm willing to, pay what I have to pay to keep our county going. But everybody in that room needs to look at the commissioners and realize they're doing what they can do. They're doing the best job they can do. And I'm not worried in the least. You all want to work at Calvert County because it is the greatest county. You want to be a teacher here because it is a great place to work. So I'm not hearing a lot of people offer solutions. I'm just hearing some complaints, and I'm hearing some things that just, people want to get off their chest. How about let's look at the balance sheet for the Calvert County government and see what properties we have. Are there properties we hold on to that could be sold, and that money could be put into the general fund to fix some of this? How about employees maybe take 1 hour less of pay period? 1 hour less of pay period. And how much money would that amount to over a year? There are things that can be done, and the Calvert County commissioners are going to look at all the stuff. I'm not worried that this is a problem, but I am worried with somebody keeping $28 million on their balance sheet because of past practices. These are rainy days, and we need to address them, and I'm sure the school system in our county is going to be fine. And if I have to pay another penny on my house, then so be it. So thanks, Calvert County commissioners. I really appreciate it. I've been watching the meetings, and I love the way y'all are paying attention. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that's joined us virtually like to provide comment? Please use the raise your hand function or press *9 to raise your hand if you called in. Last four digits, 2345. If you would please identify yourself and whether speaking as an individual or as the designated representative of a group.
My name is Margaret Dunkel. Good evening. I chair the Harriet Elizabeth Brown Commemoration Task Force established in 2015 by the Maryland Legislature. County Commissioners, thank you for all you do for Calvert County. Thank you to the Finance and Budget staff for their hard work. And thank you to the many community members who have showed up this evening and who have spoken on behalf of our Calvert County community. I want to thank the County Commissioners for allocating some funding for the Harriet Elizabeth Brown Community Center and Park in the fiscal 2025 budget. It's important that it stay in the budget. We need a full community center and park in Prince Frederick that is age-friendly and meets the needs of Calvert citizens, from infants to the elderly and with all levels of ability. At the same time, it was a disappointment to see the drop-off after that, with most of the funding as a placeholder in the final year 2030. I hope that, and there was an apparent typo that there was absolutely no funding in 2027 and 2029. I'm sure that was just a typo. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I and the 36 organizations and more than 300 individuals who are official supporters of the Harriet Elizabeth Brown Community Center and Park stand ready to work with you to make this a reality. It's an important investment in the future of our county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, any of the callers who wish to speak, please use star 9 to raise your hand. Amanda Pullen McGrath. Please identify whether you're speaking as an individual or as the designated representative of a group.
I'm speaking as an individual tonight and as a former Calvert County public school teacher. I've been out since last year, and increasingly it feels like I fled from a sinking ship. Not because of the school quality, but because of everything going on with budgets and negotiations. And fleeing that sinking ship doesn't give me any relief because I still have 3 kids in this district. And I think it's time for all the commissioners who we agree, we all care about our kids and our community, to start playing ball with the actual budget and stop playing this game of asking for audits, pretending the schools have money stashed away somewhere. We've watched time waste away for at least a year now with no meaningful action done, and the school playing scapegoat. We look at this Dominion pilot and it's clear like someone dropped the ball. I don't even care who takes the blame now, but you guys have to fix it for the kids and for the staff. The idea of furloughing staff or cutting the pay, it's ridiculous at this point. And I look at teachers that I know and I don't know how they're going to keep doing it. So you got to come together for the kids and make this better. And if that means more taxes, more taxes.
And Mr. President, no one else has raised their hand to speak virtually.
So that concludes this public hearing. The chair would entertain a motion for an action.
I move that we leave the record open through close of business on Friday, April 19th, 2024.
Second.
Have a motion and a second that we leave the record open through the close of business on Friday, April 19th, 2024. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to remind you that tonight was just the staff recommended budget. The commissioners have not done any action or work on this budget at this time. It's a staff recommended budget. So we look forward to your comments and look forward to working together through this process and get a budget approved. Thank you all.
Thank you all for coming out and voicing your opinions.
Have a good evening.